Hello dudes, welcome to another one of my tutorial videos. Today I'm actually going to be redoing an old one. We're going to be redoing the writing basics one because I just didn't really like the way it turned out. So I'm going to redo it, but this time it's just going to be more of like a tips kind of thing, and it'll just be like a free thing. I'm not going to have it for any cost on QBrush or anything like that. It's just going to be me and you talking to the camera. So I'm just going to be giving some basic tips and like frequent questions I get asked when it comes to writing and like tips of getting around it. And the most common question I get by far is, how do I get started? Like, what are some tips for beginners who want to start writing and putting a comic book together or write for a video game or whatever? And my advice always to them is the same every single time. I'm sure you guys have heard it before. Is that first of all, just start writing. And second of all, like, just don't worry about it, because I think what happens a lot of times with writers, with new writers, is when they start writing, is that they expect to have their first writing be like a bestseller. They think it's gonna be like Harry Potter, or like from the get go. Like, they're gonna just start typing, and then the first rough draft is gonna be just like a complete masterpiece. And not only is that unrealistic, but it never happens. Like, I guarantee you, the author of Harry Potter had like several rough drafts before she got to the final draft of Harry Potter that everybody read. I think that's important to understand and to remember, is that if you write something down and it's not brilliant, that's okay. That's in fact how most authors write their stories. And I think that really stunts people. People don't write because they'll read what they wrote and they're like, well, this is bad. I don't want people to read this, therefore I will not continue. But truth be told, like, I've had like for each one of my stories, literally you can count them, 50 rough drafts from beginning to end. And I just, that's something that I like doing. But with everything, Granny Joe, Vacant, Before I Sleep, all the stories that I wrote, Granny Joe is a game that I want to make. It's also the name of the channel, but I also will make a game called Granny Joe. And I think right now it's on like the 5th or 6th or 7th or 10th rough draft. And that's completely normal. Like, so, like, I can show you a screen cap of how many rough drafts there are of each issue of Vacant. When Vacant was a comic, now it's a game, so it's not like 40 rough drafts per issue. It's more like just in like a general, because now I do flowcharts for video games, so it'd be like 5 different flowcharts or something, just to see what really works the best. So if you write something down and you don't like it, that's just part of the process. And I think that's like the hardest for people. And people are the same way with art. Like, if they draw something they don't like in their sketchbook, they will take it out. And what I suggest is keep all the bad sketches in your sketchbook, because bad sketches are inevitable. It will happen. You cannot avoid it. You can't avoid it. Everybody has the bad sketches in the sketchbooks, so keep it in there. And the sooner you're okay with making bad things, making bad rough drafts, the easier your life will be. Because when you get into the professional field, you have a deadline, like an extreme deadline, and you're gonna make something you don't like. You're gonna have to send that product out. You have to get used to that. My life got easier when I was okay with doing bad things, because then I could really actually start producing things versus sitting there trying to make it perfect every single time. And that's kind of the biggest pitfall I see like new writers face, is they just think that they have to be famous with their first book, and it can't be done. It just can't be done. And also, don't write your first rough draft and be satisfied. Like, what I would often do with all my rough drafts is I would write a scene, and then I would think of different versions of that scene that that character could be in. So in the original writing tutorial I did for this channel, I had my character Granny Joe go into a bar and interact with people at a bar. But then what I would ordinarily do is go, okay, whatever like 5 or 6 other situations Granny Joe would be in that would have a similar effect. So maybe she's not in a bar anymore, maybe she's in a park, or she's a cafe, or she is in a dungeon, or whatever. And I would do that for every single scene until I come up with something very interesting. That's the only way you can come up with something very interesting, is doing more than one version of something that you're doing, versus doing a masterpiece from the get-go and then being satisfied with your masterpiece, which isn't going to be a masterpiece, because it's impossible to make a masterpiece from the get-go. And so it's like, because what a common tip I think of is the one that Pixar had, and then this was like Pixar had some of the best tips of writing I've ever seen. Probably better than the tutorials. I don't like reading writing tutorials because what happens when you read writing tutorials is that when you write your rough drafts, you think along the lines of the tutorial. So you'll, except for just writing and getting your thoughts down, you're thinking, oh, but I can't use was, or I can't use be, or you think like that versus just writing whatever comes to your head. So people will have all the very similar sounding books and very similar style writing. They'll have how many books have I read where there's like, I woke up on a stormy day? Like, a lot of books will start off that way because that's what they think like good writing starts off. They don't do anything interesting or different. They don't think what's something else someone's never done. They just go, I'll go with stormy day. I wake up on a stormy day because that's just safe. And that's what I wrote in a tutorial or something, So that's what I suggest. And one of the Pixar's tips is, if you're ever stuck in a story, think of the last thing that your character or scenario that would happen. Like, what is the last, circumstance that you think would come up after this event? Like, the last thing anybody would expect, or the least logical. And then you write that, and that is how you solve the problem. And I've done that several times, and it works. It works very, very well. And then another one is write your entire story and then rewrite it. I've done that, and people don't like that one, but I do it all the time. I'll write from beginning to end, and then I'll completely rewrite it with different situations. I do that all the time because that's the only way you can really get a true perspective on your work. And if you don't want to commit to that, you don't want to write 100 pages and then rewrite the 100 pages, then you can just do an outline. You could do an outline from a summary of what basically happens in your story, and then rewrite it from that point. And that's a good way around that issue, because I think people don't want to put the work into it. But with writing, like anything else, it just takes practice. It just takes sitting there and just doing it, and keep doing it and keep doing it. It's not there's not a magic cure. It's not a magic thing that you do to be good at writing. You just do it constantly. That's what I did. I just wrote every single day for 2 or 3 hours every day. That's how I got to my writing. I don't follow a specific script. I don't think in a specific way. I just sit there and I write it, and I ask myself questions. I go, okay, well, why did this character do that? What would they do from this point? And just ask myself questions, really analyze my characters, analyze the situation, but just ask questions. Go, why would he enter this room? Would he do this? Does it make sense that he does this? And then give it to people to critique. I give it to my sister, she'll say, oh, I don't think this makes sense, and then you go from there. And that's really how writing goes. It's not like you're not drinking tea. I mean, if you do that, drinking tea, listening to classical music, and then suddenly you're oh, eureka! I mean, if you do that, that's cool. I mean, it's your process, but that's not. Most people just don't operate in that way. But I think people have that idea in their head that that's what people do, and if they're not doing that, if they're not that kind of person, they can't write, and that's just it doesn't make any sense. But I hope this video was helpful. It was some basic tips. It's not really advanced writing. I might do a more advanced form of writing, with symbolism, symbolism and all that. They come into play, and all those formal elements come into play. But at first it's really just start writing. You don't really need to worry about formal elements unless you really want to. But a lot of the formal elements you automatically know subconsciously, so you automatically will do it. Just on your own. So maybe I'll do another one, but I think really people need to get in their heads of just writing. But I hope you guys like this, and I might make more videos like it, but thank you. Hello guys, if you like this video, please consider checking out my game Vacant. It's free right now off of itch.io in early access. I would really love to hear you guys' feedback and comments and all that jazz. The link will be in the description if you want to see more.